What up, Wizards? It's Dev. We are live for previews on day 10. It's a 10 of Final Fantasy previews here. Feels like it's been a minute since I had to do double-digit numbers for a preview season, but we're still not done. We got like a week left in previews, which is pretty freaking exciting, honestly. But we got a bunch more previews today. As has been the case recently, we didn't get all of the most amazing cards in the world. We got some cool references and a couple of cards that I think are definitely a cut above the rest, for sure. So let's go ahead and get into it. We got to start with commons as usual, but again, as usual, there's been a couple of commons recently that I think are really, really good. Now, Vane's Treachery and Weapons Vendor are not those commons, but they are at least okay creatures, or okay commons. Vane's Treachery is 2 mana, 1 and a black for an instant with Kicker, sacrifice an artifact or creature. A creature gets -2/-2 till end of turn. If you kicked this thing, that creature gets -6/6 until EOT instead. So actually not a horrible removal spell. You know, if you just got a random artifact like a treasure, a clue, a token of some kind, or a thing that you actually want to sacrifice, you know, maybe you've got an Ichor Wellspring, right? Like something that'll go to the graveyard, give you value. A Grim Bauble, which will go to the graveyard and I think give you value, right? So maybe you actually have to pay the mana to surveil with that one. But either way, man, there's a bunch of artifacts that give you some kind of value when they hit the yard. So this is really cool that it can sack those too. You know, pretty big spread of what you can actually do with this. And -6/6 is really relevant in current standard, where this takes out a number of like very important creatures. And there's not a whole lot that you have to worry about above this stat line for the most part. There's a couple of things, but I think it's okay. I don't think it's better than the ridiculous removal we have access to in standard already. I don't necessarily think that the one aristocrat deck that sort of exists, the Erase the Past, Hinterland Harbor, Starscape Cleric, that whole thing, I don't think that it wants to play, you know, too many non-creature cards at all, much less this. So kind of tough to see where this ends up going, but this is not actually a horrible aristocrats removal spell. It's not so bad. Yeah, kill Shelly. Yeah, multiple people like, it eats Shelly, baby. Yes, it does. Actually, so that might matter. It eats the, you know, Archfiend of the Dross and the 6/6 from Unholy Annex, right? But those are things you don't necessarily see so much anymore. But kills Biza and a bunch of other things that you might have to worry about. So it's not horrible. But I think you just probably play Go for the Throat 9 times out of 10. Weapons Vendor is the other guy on screen here. This is 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 2/2 human artificer. When it enters, draw a card. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control an equipment, you may pay 1. When you do, attach an equipment you control to a creature you control. This is a common in Limited, where there is obviously a pretty decent equipments deck kind of cooking up in that format. I'm not sure that it goes beyond Limited. I keep thinking that there might be a standard equipments deck. I don't think this guy is part of it, if there is one. And if this guy is part of it, the deck is not good enough. 4 mana is too much for this in standard, to be honest. And you're going to have to wait on curve until the next turn before you can actually do anything with it. And I think that that is way too slow for a 4 mana 2/2. It does replace itself when it comes into play, and that's in some ways one of the better parts of the card. In kind of powered down commander decks that want to equip things for cheap, this could see a spot, but I'm pretty sure there's just way better ways of equipping stuff for cheap or free. You know, you only have so many slots for that stuff in your deck, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of cards that beat this guy out. But again, in Limited, a kind of powered down version of a commandery equipment effect will be okay, I think, a lot of the time. So play it in those decks, but play it in Pauper? Yeah, it could be Pauper playable. It actually could be Pauper playable. That's not a bad point. Who said that? Boombox. Always with the good takes, Boom. Next is World Map. I think this is my favorite common of the day, if I'm not mistaken. A single mana for an artifact. You can pay 1, tap it, and sack it to search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, shuffle up. You can also pay 3 and tap it and sack it to search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle up. So this is just Wayfarer's Bauble, but like better, right? Am I crazy that it just is that? And like Wayfarer's Bauble pops up a good amount of the time. How am I missing the difference, right? Because there's got to be some little difference that I'm missing here. This is from FF1, by the way, which means that you have to talk to Matoya's brooms before you can actually view it. And then you have to decipher what they say. It's push B select, but it's backwards. I like that the world is in fact square. Somebody just pointed that out in the chat. Great reference. Good job. But yeah, the world is square. But yeah, Is it? Yeah, just way better, right? It's just a way better bauble. Wayfarer's Bauble puts it into play. It does. Okay, so bauble it to the field. All right, just making sure. Okay, so Bauble puts it on the field. This, not as good, I guess, right? This is actually reminiscent of a bunch of effects that we have seen in the past. I feel like they print Wayfarer's Bauble Light cards a fair number of times. But this also lets you just go get a land, any land that you want, and then put it in your hand, which could be really relevant in your, Cabal Coffers, Nykthos, Gaia's Cradle. My whole deck is built around a land, Field of Ruin. You go get a Field of Ruin maybe, or Dark Depths, you get to cooking. You could probably think of some wild stuff to do with this. So, I don't know. Kind of like that it goes and gets any land you want to at instant speed. And in the meantime, it's an artifact on the table, little rock. So I think it's pretty cool. But next, we'll get into the uncommons with Side Quest Hunt the Mark. This is an enchantment that costs 5 mana, 3 and 2 black. When it enters, destroy up to 1 target creature. Okay. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your opponent's control this turn, create a treasure token. Then, if you control 3 or more treasure tokens, transform the enchantment into Yasmat Ultimate Mark. This guy's the Ultimate Mark. That means something different in wrestling terminology. Anyway, this is a 5/6 legendary dragon that somehow does not fly. If you pay 1 and a black and sack another creature or artifact, Yasmat gains indestructible until end of turn, and you tap it. So a form of regeneration there. Cool that, again, you can sacrifice artifacts to this guy, and it's just much more likely you'll have those laying around, and it's much more likely that they'll be expendable than like a random creature. So, yeah, what a lame card, lol. Okay, so this is, again, where I have to remind folk, Vicantho, I love you, but I have to remind folk that Limited is a format, and in Limited, this is a pretty good card. In Limited, this ain't bad at all. 5 mana for an unconditional removal spell, okay, that also gives you mana every single turn, so long as you can kill something through combat or through a removal spell, right? Anything counts. And then after it's done ramping you, it becomes a guy that ends the game in Limited. So again, I think especially pre-release, right? When you go the sealed environment, it's a little bit slower. Removal's at a high priority, especially unconditional removal. You're willing to pay a little bit more for it there. And a 5/6 is a really respectable body in a format like sealed. So again, I think that this card is very, very good. Outside of sealed, I don't think it's going to see too much standard play, obviously. But I do like that once it flips over, you've gotten your 3 treasure tokens, and that means that you can immediately regenerate it if need be. So if your opponent just wants to zap it with a removal spell, you can say no because you have 3 treasures and it only costs 2 to do the ability. So I don't know, an enchantment on the table that triggers Eerie and Constellation and other effects like that also removes a creature when it comes into play. It can be blinked, it can be bounced, all that's cool. It ramps you turn over turn in a color that doesn't usually get ramped. The card actually does kind of a lot. I don't think that it's so horrible. I don't. It's not going to, again, I don't think this sees play in competitive environments, but there is something to it, and I really like the design of it. Sometimes you just have to look at a card and be like, okay, that's good design. I think that we've reached that point here. You know what I mean? So you're telling me dragons are going to kill me in sealed again? Yeah, 2 turns in a row. Dragons that don't fly. Boo earns. Yeah, he's not saying boo. He's saying boo earns. But yeah, I think that this is a neat card. Next, though, is Stolen Uniform. Somebody, when I reviewed Lock yesterday, basically said, I wish it had something to do with this part of FF6, like stealing someone's uniform. Maybe he copies creatures. But they got you covered here with a single blue mana instant called Stolen Uniform. Choose target creature you control and target equipment. Gain control of that equipment until end of turn. Attach it to the chosen creature. When you lose control of that equipment this turn, if it's attached to a creature you control, unattach it. So a lot to unpack here, but there's a lot of weird-ish wording just to say that if you happen to steal an equipment from your opponent, you have to give it back. That's it. But you can target your own equipment, right? You can gain control of an equipment that you already control, throw it on one of your dudes, and then you're not going to lose control of that equipment at end of turn, right? It's just going to stay attached to the creature. So this literally says a single blue mana to attach any equipment to any creature at instant speed in the middle of combat if you want to. So I actually think that's really strong. Yeah, very situational, but depends on the format, right? Yeah, instant speed hammer in some formats, that's pretty wild, dude. Instant speed, any of the weapons, if they let one creature through unblocked, stolen uniform, switch your buster sword over to it, have a good time. So I don't know, man. I think there might actually be something to it. I don't necessarily want to play blue in my equipment's decks. And in Commander, I don't think there's a whole lot of ways to do that. You're missing out on playing the new Cloud and a bunch of other, Boros equipment commanders that have been printed before. So they are kind of boxing it out of Commander play by, really restricting the amount of commanders you can actually play with the thing, but it still could work for equipping swords and other stuff at instant speed. I think instant speed matters like greatly on a thing like this. Think of how many times, what is it, plating, in Affinity, how many times cranial plating gets switched around at instant speed, like how good it is that you can switch cranial plating at instant speed. And this is kind of that, switching an Ember Cleave at instant speed would be hot game, so I think that this is actually a slick little Magic card that is playable. I seriously, I think this might be, depending, again, as Chad has said, very situational. But again, I think it's kind of got chops a little bit. But we'll move on to Reach the Horizon. 4 mana, 3 and a green for a sorcery. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and or town cards with different names. Put them on the battlefield, then shuffle. So obligatory explosive vegetation for the set. Invasion is into cards in Standard, but so are like 3 other cards like this because they just print them now in like every other set for some reason. But this one lets you go get towns, so that means I guess it could gain you as much as 4 life when you cast it. That's not bad on your ramp spell, but you're going to be going and getting colorless lands if you do that. You can go and get dual lands with it, and that's kind of neat because we've seen all the dual lands in the set are towns, so it gives you a kind of a reason to play those where you normally wouldn't. Just altogether, kind of neat. There's a few cards that care about towns, so whatever. I don't think that it's better than some of the stuff we have access to already. We just saw the Dragonstorm thing. In Tarkin Dragonstorm, the green one. I think it might be just ultimately better. But again, we haven't seen every town, and there are some really cool ones. So, maybe. But Ignis Scientia is up next. I never knew that was Ignis's last name. So, what a dumb last name. He's the science guy. So his name should be Scientia. Like, did you have AI to name things back then when you made Final Fantasy 15? I played this game when I lived in my apartment, so that must have been like 7 years ago. Did you have, was AI already doing stuff for Square Enix back then? Because that is an AI name, right? The Ignis Scientia. This is 3 mana, 1 a green and a blue. It's a dangerous casting cost. It's a 2/2 legendary human advisor. When Ignis enters, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them on the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And he's got, I've come up with a new recipe. This is 3 mana. Just pay his casting cost and tap him. Exile target card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, you get a food token. 3 mana to Scavenging Ooze something out of someone's graveyard. 3 and a tap. What are we doing? Why is it that much and a tap to make a food token to Scavenging Ooze? Like, get out of here, man. I will say that the ETB trigger is like fine. It can get any land, and that might be pretty cool for all the reasons I previously discussed in this exact video. There's a lot of great lands in Commander, but and I guess having like a Clifftop Lookout or a card like this, like a Wood Elves type card in your command zone might be cool, but there's probably like 8 better versions of this that exist already, so I don't know, man. I don't want to pound him too hard, but I will. He's a cutie, but I will say that like this is not the worst thing I've ever seen, but nowadays we see so many like better alternatives to a card like this that you have to instantly compare it in your mind to like Overlord of the Hauntwoods and be like, oh, well, you're just never seeing play. So, there's that, I guess, which is really sad because Ignis is cool despite his pretty lame last name. It is a fairly lame last name, and I do like it for flavor purposes. You kill a creature, he cooks the guy, he comes up with a new recipe because you killed it. Okay, that makes sense, but why is it 3 and a tap? I guess flavorfully the tap makes sense because it takes time and energy to cook. But I'm so mad at that activation cost, dude. I really do. I do mad at that at that mana cost. Let's move on to the gold saucer, everybody. Let's have some fun at the gold saucer playing the basketball game. You know, that's how I get all my credits at the gold saucer. It's the basketball game. You just got to get the right timing. I don't chocobo race like a chump. All right, I do. I do chocobo race because you have to breed the black chocobo and then eventually the gold chocobo and get Knights of Round and beat Emerald and Ruby and do all the stuff when you play Final Fantasy. But, you know, I do bet on the chocobo races. But the way you really get the money is you play the bike game. What you do is you play, I forgot about the bike game. You guys remember the bike game where you got to go like, doosh, doosh to the people on either side of you and you score? That's a good game too. Yeah, snowboarding was good too. That's true. Everybody loves snowboarding, baby. Just playing cool borders in FF7. Anyway, love the gold saucer. The gold saucer is a land. It is a town. It taps for colorless, and it comes into play untapped. Nice. You can pay 2, tap it, and flip a coin. If you win the flip, create a treasure token. Or you can pay 3, tap it, sack 2 artifacts, and draw a card. So, it ain't great. It ain't good. I like the submarine game. I can't stand the submarine game. I wish I was good at the submarine game. I'm just really bad at it. Like the one time they make you play it as a mini game during the story missions, I'm like, oh God, it's this part. Like every time. Like, how do I do this again? God. I wish there weren't so many dang mini games in Final Fantasy VII. You know, like a lot of them are optional. You can do like the Fort Condor missions and they're optional, but dumb little mini games. Anyway, the best thing I can say about this is that it looks really, really cool. It looks awesome. It's a great rendering of Gold Saucer. Good job, Anthony Devine. It comes into play untapped. I like that. It's got a little land type here. Towns are kind of relevant, I guess. And maybe you'll draw a card every now and again. Maybe, but I hate flipping coins. I really don't like flipping coins, but this is another one where you got to give it up for flavor purposes. You know what I mean? I get why it does that. Also, I like the fact that it is a magic card. It looks cool as a magic card. It does what it's supposed to do as a magic card. Still I don't think I'm gonna sleeve it in my life, which is sad. It is sad. But next we'll look at Prompto Argentum here. This is 2 mana. Just a lot of Final Fantasy 15 guys today, you know. 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 2/2 legendary human scout with haste. Has selfie shot. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, if at least 4 mana was spent to cast it, you get a treasure token. That is not too shabby right there, son. You cast oh my goodness, a big score, you know, and suddenly you get 3 treasure tokens and almost pays you back for casting it. And don't gaslight me. Big score is a card that sees playing Commander. I see it on EDH Rec, in decks all the time. Don't try to tell me what's not in Commander decks. Anyway, I'm not sure that this guy's going to be in Commander decks, but, you know, there's plenty of times where you'll spend more than 4 mana to cast something. So maybe he gives you a couple of treasure tokens, gets in a little bit in the meantime. And even in Standard, where I don't think he's playable, let me just throw that out there, he's also not terrible because any 2 mana 2/2 haste is at least a good start, right? And then on turn 4, if you are you cast a Planeswalker in your big red deck, or you cast an enchantment in your big red deck, or something, you cast a removal spell that costs a lot of mana and also does something else, you know, then suddenly getting treasure, that's a good way to get paid back. So honestly, I kind of think he's cool. You know, I got no problem with this card. I just think that he's like slightly out of standard playability, but we'll see, man. We're going to get a rotation soon, and some really powerful cards are going to rotate out of standard. So I think they might be trying to power down standard, and I am okay with that if that's what they're doing. We'll move on to Von Freedom Seeker, the first rare of the day here. 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/2 legendary human scout with cool text. Some pretty sick text here. Yeah, it goes cool with Vivi. Yeah, Prompto. I could see that if you're casting a bunch of, 4-drop spells. Cast a 4-drop non-creature is kind of a theme in the uncommon slot. We've also seen something that's, whenever you cast a thing with, it's the same mana cost as Vivi. And it's the same line of text. Whenever you do this, draw a card. And that actually looks really, really good. Like really fantastic. So we'll see how that thing works out. It's not up the beanstalk or anything, but it's cool value. So again, this line of text is kind of a going theme in this set, and we'll see how good it actually ends up being. But Vaughn has cool text here. This is 2 and a red for a 2/2 legendary human scout. Whenever one or more scouts, pirates, and or rogues you control deal combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library. You may cast it. If you don't, create a treasure token. Whenever you cast a spell you don't own, put a +1/+1 counter on each scout, pirate, and rogue you control. So a guy for the scouts deck. And he himself is a scout. So, you don't see a whole lot of support for scout. And yeah, it's each. Note, it's not the ability is whenever one or more, right? So if two pirates deal combat damage to one player, you're going to get one card off that player's library. But it is each opponent, like if you attack 2 different people and get in on both of them with a relevant creature type, then you get 2 cards off this. And if you cast them, then suddenly you're getting like 2 +1/+1 counters on all your guys. So this is really neat. This is really, really cool, man. I like that we have a scout commander. I would assume there's a lot of scouts in white and only a few in red, but I may be wrong about that assumption, as I am so often wrong about my assumptions. But either way, I like some support for scouts. You don't see that a whole lot. And obviously this can go in the 99 of pirates decks. Rogues that have red, but not a whole lot of those. So again, pirates decks, this goes in the 99 of. I think it's really good there, just ramping your treasure tokens. A lot of pirates now care when like artifacts come into play or get stronger when the more artifacts you have. Captain Storm, the 2-mana one, will give you a +1/+1 counter on pirates whenever you get an artifact. This kind of synergizes with that. So I don't know. I like to see support for pirates as well. So cool deck, man. Throw it into Admiral Beckett and get going. But next is the Lunar Whale from FF4 Sun. This is my favorite airship of any Final Fantasy game. I'm a big fan of the High Wind. Don't get me wrong. Okay. But, and I like the Falcon. I like the Falcon from FF6. But this is by far the coolest. It's a giant whale-shaped airship. This is 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 3/5 legendary vehicle with flying. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. As long as the Lunar Whale attacked this turn, you may play the top card of your library, and it has crew 1. So, coolest thing about this that I think people are kind of missing is that it doesn't just give you an extra card every turn. This gives you multiple extra cards every turn until you run out of mana or hit a land. So long as you've attacked with this, I can play a land off the top of my library, then play a card, until I hit another land, I'm gold. So this is actually pretty sick. I don't know that it's standard playable. It may be a little too small. It may be a little too, late at 4 mana, right, for an effect like this in the game. It may be in the wrong color. Blue has better ways of drawing cards and seeing cards from the top of its library. It could potentially be fragile. I don't know. But, when you think about a 3/5 flyer, it's not the worst rate in the world, and it crews for just 1, like the lowest crew cost you could possibly ask for. Your Fountain Port tokens crew this. Your Mirex tokens crew this. That's, I think, relevant in some ways. So I think this is a cool equipment. 3/5 is a fine stat line, especially with flying. This will chunk in damage from time to time. And as long as it's attacked, you can roll cards off the top of your library, sometimes, 2, 3 at a time, if that's what you want to do. Again, it may be in the wrong colors to do that. You usually want to keep mana up in blue, and, mowing through cards on top of your library is not the best way of doing that, right? But I still think this is okay value. This is fine value. So my airship tier list: Highwind, Epic, Ragnarok, Blackjack. Yeah, so what, the Epic from Chrono Trigger? Yeah, that is a great airship, actually. If it counts, it counts, and it's probably my number 1. But I don't know, maybe Lunar Whale is still in there. It still is. I think Lunar Whale will always be my favorite airship. But either way, man, I don't think this is god awful, which is high praise in terms of, the standard playability on some of these cards. So I don't hate it. But we'll move on to Tellah. Great Sage. I love the flavor on this dude. And honestly, I love the text box too. 5 mana, 3, a blue and a red for a 3/3 legendary human wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token. If 4 or more mana was spent to cast that spell, draw 2 cards. If 8 or more mana was spent to cast that spell, sacrifice Tellah, and it deals that much damage to each opponent. That's good flavor, son. So I was hoping that that Meteor or Meteo would be a spell in the set. It is. It's in the Commander product. But here we have Tellah kind of like when Tellah casts Meteor. That's the 8 or more mana thing mode on this. And that's really, really cool, dude. That's so cool. Also neat that this can burn your opponents out for the dub, depending on what you cast, if you just cast like Omniscience or some other like 10 mana thing, then obviously, 10ing everybody, double digiting everyone at the table will be pretty sweet. And then he's just going to go right back to your command zone, in a perfect world, I guess. But this could be in the 99 of Vivi as well. We've already talked about another card like that today. This could be in the 99 of, any Wizards deck. It could form the backbone of a little Wizards deck. I like that no matter what non-creature spell you cast, instant, sorcery that's 1 mana, an artifact, a creature, an artifact or a enchantment, you get a 1/1 guy. That is not in and of itself a bad line of text, especially as a commander. I like a young pyromancer, which is basically, on the baseline, this is a really expensive young pyromancer, but it's redundant with your third path iconoclast, which can also go in the 99 of the deck. I think that's really cool. And then it's got that 4 mana line of text on it. Again, we've talked about this line of text a couple of times tonight. That 4 mana line of text, actually super important here. Draw 2 cards whenever you cast. Okay, so again, let's just say I play Big Score or Unexpected Windfall, right? Let's just use that card as an example again because it's already on my mind. So I spent 4 mana to do that. Now I get to make 2 treasures and draw, 4 cards or something? That's wild. That's really, really good. And that's just using one spell as an example. When you start casting like Magma Opus, now you can like 8 all your opponents and just send Tellah back to the command zone. So really sick commander here, dude. Yeah, Prompto can go in the Tellah deck. That's true. Prompto would just annoy Tellah the entire time. He'd make treasures for him, and Tellah would spend those treasures, casting ever larger spells, and he would still be very annoyed by Prompto. I would love to see them together, but either way, yeah, he could go. But whether you're, Tellah's in your command zone, Vivi's in your 99, or more likely Vivi's in the command zone, Tellah's in your 99. This is a really, really slick Magic card that I'm going to maybe build around in Commander because, I want to build Vivi, but I think that card's still like $60-something. Tellah will probably be like 50 cents before too long. And that's the kind of commander I like. He's just got a really sick text box, dude. So doing it, But next is the Regalia here. Is this the final card of the day? I feel like, no, maybe there's one more. There's one more after this. The Regalia is actually not a bad vehicle. The Batmobile is 4 mana for a 4/4 legendary vehicle with haste and crew 1. Whenever the Regalia attacks, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay. Is this not insane? Is it? This is good, right? This is all right. A 4/4 with haste that just throws a land card. By the way, it's until you hit a land. It's not like look at the top 5, look at the top 6. This is just until you hit a land. So even if you go like 10 cards, you're going to hit something guaranteed. I think that's pretty cool. You'll never whiff. You can hit any land with this. I already talked a couple of times about how good that is in this little video that we're doing here. So again, in Commander, you hit a bunch of stuff. But even in Standard, you can hit you can ramp into a Surveil land while pressuring life with a 4/4 and get the Surveil, or whatever it is that you're getting off of it. So I don't know, dude. I actually think that's super sick, and any deck can play this card. Any deck can play it. And just like I was saying a second ago with the airship, just about anything can crew this, right? A Fountain Port token, a Mirex token, a whatever can crew this guy. And I think that matters a good bit, too, for getting him attacking the turn that comes into play. Just actually pretty cool car right here, man. Yeah, only crew 1 is nuts. Yeah, it could have been like crew 4, you know what I mean? Because it takes like 4 people to fill the car up. But I guess it only takes 1 person starting at level 1 at the beginning of Final Fantasy 15 to crew this thing. So it can't be too hard, right? But yeah, man, it's actually really cool flavor for a car. Right? Like when it enters play, drives somewhere. The flavor is literally just that. When it enters play and you rev it up and you actually hit the gas pedal, attack, go somewhere. Sick. It's actually really cool. But yeah, altogether, I think this is actually a pretty strong magic card. Like, why does it have haste? Why does it crew for just one? It feels like a while since we've seen a card that was actually pushed, right? Most of the cards in the set are commandery. They don't look too standard relevant for the most part. But this, I think, I'm remembering what it was like to see a pushed standard card. And I think you have to be, in some ways, even better than this to be a standard slam dunk. But even if this doesn't see play, I think they pushed it towards it more than a lot of the other cards in the set. So, good guy. Good, sick little car right here, baby. I'm drifting through the mountain pass with that boy right there. Does this go in the landfall deck? Maybe. Probably. I like it better than some of the other 4 mana stuff, like Head Shredder. Compared to Head Shredder, I think this is like way better, But it's kind of weird to see a normal car. But I guess we did New Capenna. There's like a couple of normal cars in that. But today's final card, the only mythic of the day, is Ancient Adamantois. This is 8 mana, 5 and 3 green for an 8/20 turtle. It's an 8/20 turtle with vigilance and ward 3. Damage is not removed from this creature during cleanup steps. We're playing Pokemon now. All damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control is dealt to this creature instead. When this creature dies, exile it and create 10 tapped treasure tokens. Let's go. So you're telling me, are there squirrels doing inappropriate things right outside my window? I wonder if you can catch that on the mic. I heard some rustling. There's hedges right next to this window right here. Heard some rustling, and then I heard some wild squirrel noises. They're out there doing wild squirrel things, having a good little Thursday night, getting ahead of the weekend. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, Turt McGurk here is crazy. 8 mana is a lot. 8 mana is crazy. It's so nasty. That's probably way too much for anything. And I'm not sure that it's worth reanimating, which is probably the way you're going to cheat it into play, right? But just forget about the casting cost. Don't look at it. Forget the casting cost. Just stop it. This dude is kind of tough to target, ward 3. Vigilance, and he can swing. I don't see a situation where this dude won't just swing. Unless, of course, you don't want, it says damage isn't removed from him. I guess the real question is, how many turns can this guy be a fog? How many turns can it actually be a fog? Note that it also says damage that would be dealt to you and other permanents you control. So if you have some other creatures, your opponent will be even more deterred from attacking in than it seems, right? Because you can block with your creatures, kill their guys, and your creatures don't take damage. Just this guy. So that's kind of neat. Just a walking fog here for 2 or 3 turns. Your opponent probably kills it, but if they do kill it without exiling it, you get 10 tapped treasure tokens. 10. Did I read that part yet? When this creature dies, exile it and create 10 tapped treasure tokens, which is more than you spent on it to begin with. It's kind of lame that they're tapped, but I think they have to be, or else they'd be tricks. That's also why it exiles. They just don't want tricks. But really, really nasty, dude. Really nasty, dude. Do you instantly scoop to this and draft or sealed? No, I think you just try to kill it anyway. I think you just try to destroy target creature, pay the extra mana, give him the treasure tokens. You just don't want it on the table. This is a really high priority removal target, but if you can removal, you just go for it. Otherwise, if you're in a situation where you're kind of in the trenches, going back and forth during combat steps or whatever, then yeah, this is probably insta-scoop. And a good card for sealed, I would say. I mean, just play the 1, But altogether, this is a meme that won't see standard play, but it definitely is one of those content creator cards. Give it a shot. It could be a commander card. Maybe there's with ways to cheat this into play. I'll say this: if you exile it and then if you flicker it, right, you blink this guy, damage is removed from him at that point. So in a deck that has a lot of ways of flickering him or bouncing him, maybe, then you could do a Pillow Fort or Turbo Fog kind of situation where your opponent just can't get in damage on you. But, there's other ways to kill you in a game of Magic. Sometimes that's your opponent's only real game plan, but you have to have a way of winning too. Maybe you just turn this guy. Well, I was gonna say turn him sideways. He has vigilance. But yeah, this is a really interesting dude to think about. But I do. Back to the 8 mana. I gave you permission to think about the casting cost again. You get back to the casting cost on here, and 8 mana is probably just you're biting off too much. You know what I mean? That's a lot of mana. But really, really cool card here. It's designed well. I think if you ever can get it out, then it pays you massive dividends. You know what I mean? So I think he's cool. I might try to reanimate him on stream and see if, offense wins games, but defense wins championships, which I'm actually not 100% sure is true in the game of Magic, but we'll test the theory and see if it works out. I think he's a great dude, and I like the reference for what it's worth, but is it truly good? Probably not, but who cares? Is there a toughness throw effect in any format? Well, we just got in Tarkir Dragonstorm Commander, there is a 4 mana black enchantment that whenever you resolve a creature, whenever a creature enters, I think you deal damage to a target or maybe each opponent. I forget how it works, but you deal damage to something equal to the difference between its toughness and its power, right? If its toughness is greater than its power, you get to deal damage equal to the difference to something. And in this case, it would be 12 damage in that deck, which does seem pretty sick. It does seem very cool. And at which point, just play one of the Innistrad trees, the 13 toughness trees. Well, I mean, you can build a whole deck that does, toughness tricks, I guess. You could play, what is it, Tree of Perdition? It's the one that, it's 13 toughness, but if you tap it, you can, switch your opponent's life total with its toughness. So you put them at 13 with that, and then you play Ancient Adamantois, and now they're at 1. So that's a cute way to knock a person out of the game, but I guess you still have to actually clean things up from there. Somebody will do the rest of it for you in a game of Commander, likely. But altogether, it's pretty neat stuff. These are the cards meant for fun Commander games, but we'll see if it gets there, But yeah, if a Death Touch creature attacks in, this thing cannot avoid it since it redirects the damage. Is that how that works? If a Death Touch creature attacks in, this thing cannot avoid it since it redirects the damage. So I guess you just have to not block the Death Touch guy is all. Just right? No, because also to you and other permanents you control. Well, I guess you get 10 treasure tokens. I guess that's a nice catch. Yeah, you have to take the damage from the Death Touch guy. That damage is dealt to this. He dies. And you get 10 treasures. I'll take the 10 treasures. Most of the time. But anyway, Twitch Cham. I was going to say chat and also fam. So let's invent a new word. Twitch fam. Stick around after this because we got one more thing we're going to do before we get out of here. YouTube family. Appreciate you for coming out for these previews. Don't you wish you were here watching live at twitch.tv/SBMTGdev. You could put that into your address bar right now and follow us over here and make the next one because next week's stream is going to be the full set speed run, which will completely wipe me out, and it's always super fun to watch. And honestly, it's a lot of fun to do too. But anyway, that's always like a 4-hour stream. Come catch what you can of it next week. Apart from that, do the YouTube stuff. Hit the like button. It is shaped like your hand. Specifically your thumb, if you wanted me to be even more specific. Apart from that, you can hit the subscribe button, trying to get to 150K, be part of that. But also, I've got a Patreon. It's $1 a month. That's all. Nothing costs $1. You want a soda pop? More than $1. Even if you just want like a 16-ounce can or a 12-ounce can, I don't even know what it is. It's more than $1. Everything's more than $1. I am not. To support the channel and keep this happening around here, your daily content, just $1 is all it takes every single month, and I'd be very appreciative of that. But anyway, that's at patreon.com/SBMTG. Pretty easy to remember. You know the name of the channel by now, I would assume. But anyway, that's all I've got for this one. There's going to be more on the morrow, I assume, so we'll be back for that and a Commander Deck Tech this week. Pretty jacked about that. But right now, we are about to, on Twitch, talk about the 5 commanders I am building in paper from this set already. And you'll be able to see that on YouTube too, I'm sure. So join us for that if you haven't seen it yet. And I will catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.